Breathing is one of those miracles of life that happens so quietly, so continuously, that most of the time we hardly notice it at all. From the moment we are born, our first cry filling the air with sound and life, until the very last moment of our existence, the act of breathing never truly leaves us. It is a companion, steady and loyal, always there in the background, whether we are awake or deeply asleep. The respiratory system, which makes this process possible, is not only a marvel of anatomy but also a gentle rhythm keeper, orchestrating the rise and fall of the chest in an endless cycle of giving and receiving. Tonight, as we begin this exploration, we will treat the subject not as a set of cold mechanisms, but as a story, soft and steady, a story about the invisible thread that connects us to the world around us, the air itself. Air may seem empty, a simple void, yet in truth, it is a quiet ocean of gases that surrounds and sustains us. Every breath draws in oxygen, a molecule essential for life, while every exhale carries away carbon dioxide, a waste product of metabolism. This exchange, so simple and so profound, allows every cell in the body to continue its work. The heart beats, the muscles move, the brain thinks, and all of this is possible only because the respiratory system maintains its delicate balance. If you imagine your body as a bustling city, then breathing is the delivery of fuel that keeps every light glowing and every street alive with activity. And unlike food or water, which we can go without for hours or even days, the air must flow in and out of us constantly. It is the most immediate of life's requirements, so fundamental that we often forget it is happening at all. As you lie quietly, listening to this gentle lecture, notice the rise and fall of your own chest. The process is effortless. Muscles below the lungs contract, making space, and air slips in to fill the void. The same muscles relax, and the air drifts out again. This rhythm repeats again and again, perhaps 20,000 times a day, each breath so unremarkable and yet so vital. The respiratory system is not dramatic. It does not draw attention to itself. Instead, it works quietly in the background, like the tide flowing against the shore, always present, always dependable. To truly appreciate the respiratory system, it helps to see it not just as a collection of organs, but as a bridge. On one side of the bridge lies the external world, the sky, the winds, the atmosphere, filled with gases, dust, and traces of countless living things. On the other side lies the private world of the body, with its tissues and cells, its blood vessels and organs. The respiratory system connects these two realms. It allows the external to become internal. With every breath, the outside world becomes part of you, drawn deep into the lungs, where oxygen molecules slip across delicate membranes and join with red blood cells. This connection reminds us of a truth both scientific and poetic. We do not live apart from our environment, but are woven into it with every inhalation. Consider, too, the role of breathing in our emotional lives. Though we think of it as automatic, the breath is also one of the few bodily functions we can consciously control. We can hold it, lengthen it, slow it, or quicken it. A sigh can release tension. A deep inhalation can prepare us for effort, and slow, steady breathing can bring calm in moments of stress. Across cultures and centuries, breathing has been central to practices of meditation, prayer, and relaxation. Long before science explained alveoli, oxygen transport, and carbon dioxide exchange, human beings understood that the way we breathe could shape the way we feel. The respiratory system, therefore, is not only a physiological necessity but also a companion in our inner lives, carrying with it the power to restore balance when we feel unsettled. From an evolutionary perspective, the act of drawing air into the lungs ties us to countless generations of ancestors. Before lungs existed, life breathed through gills, extracting oxygen from water. Long before that, primitive cells absorbed oxygen directly from their surroundings. The development of lungs marked a turning point, allowing animals to leave the sea and inhabit the land. With lungs came the ability to thrive in new environments, to walk on the earth and fill the forests and skies. Each breath you take is a quiet echo of that ancient story, a reminder that life has always adapted to its environment in order to survive. The human respiratory system is part of that long lineage, finely tuned to support a body that moves, speaks, sings, and rests. As we begin this journey through the respiratory system, it is worth pausing to appreciate its elegance. Imagine the system as a tree turned upside down. The trunk is the trachea, strong and flexible, branching into two main bronchi, one for each lung. These bronchi divide again and again, narrowing into smaller bronchioles, until finally, at the ends of these branches, are the alveoli, tiny sacs, delicate as soap bubbles. Each alveolus is surrounded by a network of capillaries, the smallest blood vessels in the body, ready to receive oxygen and release carbon dioxide. The design is not only efficient but graceful, maximizing the surface area where air and blood can meet. In fact, if the surface area of all the alveoli in a pair of human lungs were spread out flat, it would cover an area roughly the size of a tennis court. This astonishing scale is hidden within the quiet act of breathing, showing just how much space the body dedicates to the task of exchanging gases. In the quiet of night, when you lie in bed and drift toward sleep, your breath becomes slower and softer. The respiratory system adjusts without any need for conscious thought, guided by the brainstem, which senses the levels of carbon dioxide in your blood and keeps the rhythm steady. Even in dreams, even in the deepest stages of rest, the lungs continue their work. The chest rises and falls like the gentle motion of waves against the shore, a rhythm that reassures and sustains. This constancy is what allows us to surrender to sleep, to let go of awareness and drift, knowing that the body will carry on. In studying the respiratory system, one does not need to focus only on the mechanics of airflow and gas exchange. There is also beauty in the idea that the air you breathe tonight may have traveled across oceans and mountains, through forests and deserts, before finding its way into your lungs. Every breath contains molecules that have circulated through the atmosphere for millions of years. Molecules once inhaled by trees, animals, and even people long ago. In this way, breathing becomes a quiet act of connection, not only to the present world, but also to the history of life itself. As this introduction draws to a close, let us hold on to this image, the breath as a soft, unbroken thread that ties us to the earth, to the air, to each other, and to every moment of our existence. The respiratory system, in all its complexity and simplicity, is a system designed to sustain without noise, to support without demanding attention, and to remind us, gently and constantly, of the gift of being alive. With that thought, we will move onward, beginning to follow the path of air as it makes its way into the body, step by step, through passages and chambers, until it reaches the very depths of the lungs where life and air truly meet. 2. The flow of air. When we draw in a breath, the air follows a journey. quiet but intricate, moving along a carefully shaped path that guides it into the deepest parts of the lungs. This journey begins at the openings of the body, the nose, and the mouth before slipping further inward, always directed by structures designed to filter, protect, and deliver. Though this passage of air takes only seconds, the route is remarkable in its detail, a living corridor lined with tissues that tend to the breath as it moves along. Each inhale and exhale repeats the same journey, thousands of times each day, keeping the body supplied with oxygen and freed from the burden of carbon dioxide. The first gateway, the nose, is often the preferred entrance for air. The nasal passages are more than simple openings. They are lined with hairs and a moist layer of mucus, both of which serve to capture dust, pollen, and other particles drifting in the air. As you breathe in through the nose, the air is warmed or cooled to match the body's internal temperature, and it is humidified so that the delicate tissues deeper in the lungs do not dry out. Breathing through the nose is, in this sense, a gentle preparation, like walking across a quiet threshold where the outside world is adjusted before entering the inner world of the body. The mouth offers another entrance. Air can flow through the mouth when the nose is blocked, or when the body demands more oxygen, such as during exercise. Unlike the nasal passages, the mouth does not filter or condition the air as thoroughly, but it allows for a greater volume of air to move in more quickly. Both the nose and mouth ultimately lead to the pharynx, a shared chamber at the back of the throat where air and food both pass through on their way to the lungs or the digestive tract. The body is careful, however, to guide these substances along the correct path. At the top of the airway lies the larynx, also called the voice box. It contains the vocal cords, which can vibrate to produce sound when air passes over them. But it also has another important role, guarding the entrance to the trachea. The epiglottis, a flap of tissue above the larynx, bends downward when we swallow, sealing off the airway so that food does not enter. When we breathe, the epiglottis remains open, allowing air to flow freely into the trachea. This silent coordination, air moving one way, food another, happens automatically. A graceful dance of anatomy that prevents confusion between two essential processes. The trachea, often referred to as the windpipe, is the next part of the journey. This tube is both flexible and strong, about the width of a garden hose, running down the center of the chest. Its walls are supported by rings of cartilage, shaped like the letter C, open at the back, where the tube presses against the esophagus. These rings prevent the trachea from collapsing as we breathe, keeping the passage clear for airflow. Inside, the lining of the trachea is covered with cilia, tiny hair-like structures that sweep in rhythmic waves, carrying mucus and trapped particles upward, away from the lungs. In this way, the trachea is not just a pipe for air, but also a cleaning corridor, ensuring that the lower respiratory system remains clear and protected. From the lower end of the trachea, the air reaches a point of division. The trachea splits into two primary bronchi, one leading to the right lung and the other to the left. These bronchi are like the main branches of a tree, sturdy at their bases, guiding the air deeper into the chest cavity. Each bronchus then divides again and again into smaller bronchi and then into bronchioles, narrowing each time, like branches tapering into twigs. This branching pattern is not random but highly organized, ensuring that air can reach every region of the lungs. The bronchioles, thin and delicate, eventually lead the air to the alveoli, the tiny sacs where gas exchange occurs. But for now, at this stage of the journey, what is most striking is the branching itself. If you imagine turning a tree upside down so that its roots extend upward into the sky, you would see a shape remarkably similar to the airways of the lungs. The trachea forms the trunk, the bronchi, the larger branches, and the bronchioles, the smallest twigs. Within this living tree, air flows softly, carried ever closer to the places where it will merge with the bloodstream. The flow of air is not merely mechanical but also deeply rhythmic. Each breath draws air downward as the diaphragm contracts and the chest cavity expands, creating a gentle vacuum that pulls oxygen-rich air inward. When the muscles relax, the air moves out again, carrying carbon dioxide back along the same path through the bronchioles, bronchi, trachea, larynx, and out through the nose or mouth. This cycle of in and out is constant, unbroken, and perfectly suited to the needs of the body. It is worth pausing here to notice the balance between simplicity and complexity in this system. On one hand, the act of breathing is beautifully simple. Air goes in, air goes out. Yet beneath that simplicity lies a vast network of passages, linings, protections, and structures, each playing its part to ensure that the process remains safe and efficient. The air's journey is guided at every step, shaped and tended to before it reaches the fragile alveoli, where the true exchange will occur. And so, every breath you take follows this same path, beginning with a quiet entrance at the nose or mouth, winding gently through the pharynx, past the larynx, down the trachea, into the bronchi, and further still into the bronchioles. This flow happens in silence, unnoticed, yet it is the first half of the most essential exchange in life. Without it, oxygen could not reach the blood, and without oxygen, the body could not endure for more than a few moments. As you rest and listen, you may find comfort in imagining this journey. Picture the air as a soft stream, winding steadily through a living corridor, passing through chambers and gates, down the central trunk of the trachea, and into the branching pathways of the lungs. This is the flow of air, gentle and constant, a process as natural as the rhythm of the tides or the rising and setting of the sun. With each breath, the cycle begins anew, always the same, always sustaining. 3. The nose and sinuses. When we think of breathing, we often picture the lungs, the diaphragm, or perhaps the chest, rising and falling in a quiet rhythm. Yet the journey of every breath usually begins in a place much closer to the surface, the nose. Though modest in appearance, the nose and its hidden passages play an essential role in conditioning the air before it ever reaches the lungs. This entryway is not merely an opening to the outside world. It is a carefully shaped structure, lined with delicate tissues, hairs, and chambers that transform the raw air of the environment into something safe, moist, and warm enough to meet the needs of the body. As air enters through the nostrils, it immediately encounters tiny hairs, known as vibrissae. These are the first guardians of the respiratory tract, catching larger particles such as dust, pollen, and even small insects. Though these hairs are easy to overlook, their presence provides an important line of defense, ensuring that coarse debris does not travel deeper into the airway. Beyond these visible hairs lies a moist lining of mucus, a sticky substance that traps smaller particles, including bacteria and potential irritants suspended in the air. This mucus does not remain static. It is constantly moved along by cilia, microscopic hair-like structures that sweep rhythmically toward the throat, guiding unwanted material away from the lungs where it might otherwise cause harm. But the nose is more than a filter. It also acts as a conditioner for the air, The nasal passages are lined with a rich network of blood vessels that lie close to the surface. As cool air enters, it passes over these warm vessels, rising gently in temperature until it nearly matches that of the body. In the opposite direction, if the air is too warm, the passages help cool it slightly, creating a balance before it enters the deeper respiratory tract. At the same time, moisture is added to the air as the lining of the nasal passages releases a fine mist of water vapor. In this way, the nose ensures that the lungs receive air that is neither too dry nor too harsh, but perfectly conditioned for gas exchange. Nestled around the nasal passages are the sinuses, hollow spaces within the bones of the face and skull. These cavities, though empty of solid structures, are not purposeless voids. They are lined with the same moist mucous membranes as the nasal passages, contributing to the process of warming and humidifying the air. The sinuses also lighten the weight of the skull, making the head less heavy than it would otherwise be, and they add resonance to the voice, shaping its timbre and tone. When you speak or sing, it is the sinuses that give depth and fullness to the sound, turning a simple vibration into something more resonant. There are several pairs of sinuses: the frontal sinuses above the eyes, the maxillary sinuses beneath the cheeks, the ethmoid sinuses between the eyes, and the sphenoid sinuses deeper within the skull. Together, these chambers create a network that interacts continuously with the nasal passages. When healthy, the sinuses are open, allowing air to pass and mucus to drain freely. When inflamed, they can become congested, creating pressure and discomfort. Yet even in these times, their function as part of the greater respiratory system remains clear. They are quiet contributors, shaping the quality of every breath and every sound. An often overlooked detail of the nasal passages is the way their structure influences airflow. The passages are not straight tubes but gently curved corridors with small projections called turbinates or conchi. These bony ridges create turbulence in the airflow, swirling the incoming air and increasing the contact between the air and the mucus lining. This design maximizes filtration, humidification, and temperature adjustment, ensuring that by the time the air passes deeper into the respiratory system, it is well prepared for the sensitive alveoli that will eventually receive it. Beyond their mechanical role, the nose and sinuses also contribute to our sensory experience of the world. Along the roof of the nasal cavity lie specialized receptors for smell, part of the olfactory system. Every breath brings with it not only oxygen, but also subtle molecules that trigger sensations of scent, floral, earthy, smoky, sweet. These signals travel directly to the brain, often bypassing conscious thought, stirring memories and emotions. In this way, the act of breathing through the nose becomes more than simple respiration. It is also an act of perception, connecting us to our environment in a deeply personal way. Another quiet role of the nose is in the regulation of airflow itself. Breathing through the nose, compared to breathing through the mouth, naturally slows the pace of inhalation, offering resistance that encourages a steadier rhythm. This slower, deeper style of breathing allows for more efficient oxygen exchange once the air reaches the lungs. It also engages the lower parts of the lungs, which are rich in blood supply and particularly effective at absorbing oxygen. In many traditions of meditation and relaxation, nasal breathing is emphasized precisely because it fosters calm, deep, and balanced respiration. When we consider all of these roles together, filtering, warming, moistening, resonating, and even smelling, it becomes clear that the nose and sinuses are not minor participants but essential parts of the respiratory system. They are the gateway through which the outside world is transformed into something compatible with the inner world of the body. Every inhalation is shaped and refined by their design, even when we are unaware of it. As you rest and breathe quietly, imagine the air passing gently through the nose, over the turbinates, into the sinuses, warmed by the vessels, moistened by the lining, and cleansed by the mucus and cilia. Picture this process happening not once, but countless times, throughout every hour of the day and night. It is a reminder of how much care the body takes in preparing the air before it reaches the delicate tissues of the lungs. This preparation, subtle and constant, is a gift of the nose and sinuses, a beginning that ensures the safety and efficiency of every breath that follows. And so, the nose and sinuses, though often unnoticed, are the quiet guardians of respiration. They stand at the threshold, shaping each breath before it travels deeper into the living tree of the lungs. As we move onward in this exploration, we will follow the air further into the larynx and the voice, where the flow of breath meets the power of sound and protection, continuing its gentle path inward. 4. The larynx and the voice. As air continues its quiet journey inward, it passes through a structure that serves two essential purposes. It protects the delicate passage of the lungs from foreign material, and it allows us to produce sound. This structure is the larynx, often called the voice box, a short but remarkable organ that rests just below the pharynx at the top of the trachea. Though small compared to the lungs or the heart, the larynx is a place of meeting, where protection and expression intertwine, shaping both the safety of our breathing and the sound of our voices. The larynx is built from a framework of cartilage, strong yet flexible, held together by ligaments, and moved by small muscles. These cartilages include the thyroid cartilage, which forms the familiar prominence at the front of the throat, often called the Adam's apple, and the cricoid cartilage, a complete ring that supports the structure below. Resting like a flap above the larynx is the epiglottis, a leaf-shaped piece of cartilage that acts as a guardian. When we swallow food or drink, the epiglottis folds downward, closing off the airway and guiding the material toward the esophagus. When we breathe, it rises again, leaving the passage open for air. This movement is automatic and requires no conscious effort, yet it protects us countless times each day from inhaling what does not belong in the lungs. Within the larynx are the vocal folds, commonly known as vocal cords. These are not cords in the sense of string or rope, but folds of tissue that stretch across the laryngeal cavity. When air passes through them, they can vibrate, creating sound. The pitch and tone of that sound depend on the tension and length of the folds, which are controlled by tiny muscles within the larynx. When the folds are held loosely, the sound is low and deep. When they are stretched tightly, the sound rises in pitch. It is through this simple mechanism that the raw material of voice is formed, later shaped into speech and song by the resonating chambers of the throat, mouth, and sinuses. The larynx is therefore a crossroads of function. On one hand, it is a gatekeeper, preventing the accidental passage of food into the lungs. On the other, it is an instrument, capable of producing an immense variety of sounds. These sounds can be as subtle as a whisper, or as powerful as a shout, as controlled as a melody, or as natural as a laugh. Long before words were formed, the human voice served as a means of connection, comfort, and warning. All of this begins with the vibration of air across two folds of tissue, set in motion within the larynx. The location of the larynx also reflects its importance. Positioned at the very top of the trachea, it stands as a threshold. Above it lies the pharynx, where air and food share the same passage. Below it begins the trachea, leading only to the lungs. The larynx, sitting between these two, ensures that only air descends into the respiratory system. This role as gatekeeper is as vital as its role in sound production, for without it, the simple act of swallowing would threaten every breath. An interesting aspect of the larynx is its adaptability. In infants, the larynx is positioned higher in the throat than in adults, allowing babies to breathe and swallow at nearly the same time, a feature that is useful in early life. As we grow, the larynx descends, changing the shape of the throat and contributing to the deeper tones of the adult voice. In males, this descent is often more pronounced, leading to a lower pitch, though in both sexes, the change marks the transition from the high, pure tones of childhood to the fuller voices of maturity. Though the larynx is most often associated with speech, its influence extends beyond communication. It plays a role in breathing itself, as the opening between the vocal folds, called the glottis, can widen or narrow to control airflow. When we take a deep breath before exertion, the glottis opens widely to allow a rush of air. When we hold our breath, it closes firmly, sealing the passage. Even a cough, that sudden burst of air meant to clear the airway, depends on the larynx. The vocal folds close tightly. Pressure builds within the chest, and then the folds snap open, releasing a forceful stream of air that sweeps irritants away. The sound of the voice, shaped in the larynx, is then carried upward and outward, resonating in the cavities of the throat, mouth, and sinuses. Each person's voice is unique, not only because of the size and tension of the vocal folds, but also because of the shape of the resonating chambers. This uniqueness is why no two voices sound exactly alike, even when singing the same note or speaking the same word. In this way, the larynx becomes not only an organ of protection and airflow, but also one of individuality, giving each of us a distinct presence in the world through sound. Breathing, protection, sound, all these converge in the larynx. And yet, like much of the respiratory system, it works in silence most of the time. Only when we speak, sing, or cough does its presence draw attention. Otherwise, it is content to act in the background, guarding the passage of air, guiding the breath along its way, and standing ready to produce sound when needed. As you lie quietly, you might imagine the air passing through this chamber, slipping gently past the vocal folds, unvoiced and unnoticed, on its way toward the trachea and the deeper branches of the lungs. Picture the epiglottis rising and falling with each swallow, the folds parting and drawing together with each change of airflow. The larynx, though hidden and often forgotten, is a place where the body's needs and its expressions come together, a place where protection and voice share a single home. And so the journey of air continues. Having passed the careful guardianship of the larynx, it now moves downward into the trachea, the sturdy trunk of the respiratory tree. From there, it will branch into the bronchi, the larger limbs of this living structure, guiding the breath ever deeper into the lungs. 5. Once the air has passed safely through the larynx, guarded by the epiglottis and shaped by the vocal folds, it enters the trachea, the central passageway that guides every breath into the depths of the lungs. The trachea is often described as the windpipe, and in many ways it resembles a sturdy yet flexible tube. It stretches downward, through the neck, and into the chest, sitting just in front of the esophagus, and serves as the trunk of the great respiratory tree. At first glance, it may seem like a simple channel for airflow, but the trachea has been carefully designed to remain open, to protect the lungs, and to cleanse the air as it flows through. The walls of the trachea are reinforced with rings of cartilage, shaped like the letter C. These rings are incomplete at the back, where the trachea presses against the esophagus, allowing the tube to be flexible enough to shift when swallowing food. Yet the front and sides remain strong, preventing collapse even when pressure changes inside the chest. Without this reinforcement, the trachea might narrow or close as we inhale deeply, making breathing unreliable. Instead, the cartilage maintains its shape, keeping the airway clear and steady through every breath we take. Within the trachea, the lining is not smooth but alive with tiny structures. The inner surface is covered in cilia, microscopic hair-like projections that move in coordinated waves. These cilia sweep mucus upward, away from the lungs, toward the throat where it can be swallowed or expelled. This system acts like a gentle conveyor belt, constantly cleaning the airway of dust, microbes, and debris that were trapped earlier by the nasal passages or caught within the trachea itself. Alongside the cilia, the mucus produced by special cells keeps the lining moist, protecting it from drying out under the continuous stream of air. Thus, even though the trachea is only a passage, it is far from passive. It is active, self-cleaning, and carefully maintained, ensuring that the air continues its journey in a purified state. The trachea descends until it reaches the level of the chest, where it comes to a fork, dividing into two large branches called the primary bronchi. One bronchus leads to the right lung, the other to the left. This division marks the beginning of an extraordinary branching system. Each bronchus is substantial in size, yet as they enter the lungs, they divide again into smaller secondary bronchi, and then again into even smaller tertiary bronchi. With each division, the tubes narrow, branching into finer pathways, until eventually they form countless bronchioles. This branching pattern is so extensive that it resembles the intricate root system of a great tree, spreading widely to reach every part of the lungs. The branching is not symmetrical. The right bronchus is slightly wider and steeper than the left, reflecting the fact that the right lung is larger and has 3 lobes, while the left lung, making space for the heart, has only 2. This difference means that inhaled objects, if accidentally drawn into the airway, are more likely to lodge in the right bronchus than in the left. Yet both sides follow the same principle. Each division allows air to be distributed evenly, so that oxygen can reach every corner of lung tissue. The bronchi are lined much like the trachea, with cartilage rings and ciliated epithelium. But as they branch and become smaller, the cartilage gradually disappears, and the walls become more muscular and flexible. In the bronchioles, the tiniest branches of the system, there is no cartilage at all. Instead, smooth muscle controls their diameter, allowing them to widen or narrow as needed. This ability is crucial, for the bronchioles can adjust airflow depending on the body's needs. During exercise, they widen, allowing a greater volume of air to flow. During exposure to irritants, they may narrow, protecting the lungs, but also creating the familiar wheezing of asthma. In this way, the bronchi are not only channels but also regulators, shaping the flow of air as it moves deeper within. The structure of the trachea and bronchi highlights a balance between strength and adaptability. The trachea remains steady and open, a strong central passage that does not falter. The bronchi, branching and narrowing, become increasingly responsive to the body's demands. capable of changing their size to accommodate shifts in oxygen requirement or to defend against harmful particles. Together, they form the main body of the respiratory tree, a living structure whose design ensures that every breath is carried to where it is needed. It is calming to imagine this system as a tree inverted within the chest. The trachea is the trunk, thick and dependable, while the bronchi and bronchioles spread outward like roots, delicate and far-reaching. Just as a tree draws nourishment upward from the soil to sustain its branches and leaves, so too does this respiratory tree draw air inward, carrying life-sustaining oxygen into the hidden spaces of the lungs. Every division, every narrowing pathway, is part of a design that maximizes the distribution of air, ensuring that no region is left untouched. As the air flows through these passages, it remains quiet. There is no rushing or turbulence within a healthy system, only a gentle stream guided by smooth linings and shaped by branching corridors. The bronchi carry the air faithfully until it reaches the bronchioles, and from there, the final journey will begin to the alveoli, the tiny sacs where the true exchange of gases occurs. But for now, the trachea and bronchi stand as essential conduits, strong yet adaptable, always present and always ready to deliver the breath to its destination. In this way, the trachea and bronchi remind us that even the seemingly simple parts of the body are never merely pipes or passageways. They are active, protective, responsive, and alive. Each time you inhale, air travels down this path through the larynx, into the trachea, along the bronchi, branching into bronchioles before arriving at the delicate alveoli, where oxygen will slip quietly into the blood. This journey repeats endlessly, 20,000 times a day, without pause, without fail. And so, we leave the trachea and bronchi, the central trunk and main branches of the respiratory tree, and follow the air as it enters the lungs themselves. There, in vast spongy chambers, the breath will unfold into millions of tiny sacs, each one a stage for the quiet dance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. 6. The lungs, as living sponges, the air that has traveled through the nose and mouth, past the larynx, down the trachea, and along the branching bronchi, now arrives at its true home, the lungs. These are the great, soft organs of respiration, filling most of the chest cavity, protected by the ribs, and cushioned against the heart and diaphragm. To imagine the lungs, think not of rigid machinery, but of something light and pliable, something that expands and contracts with ease. They are less like heavy stone and more like living sponges, soaking in air with each inhalation, releasing it again with each exhalation, endlessly repeating this rhythm. Each lung is enclosed within a thin double-layered membrane called the pleura. One layer clings tightly to the surface of the lung itself, while the other attaches to the inside of the chest wall. Between them is a thin film of fluid, allowing the two surfaces to glide smoothly against one another as the lungs expand and contract. This arrangement creates a nearly frictionless environment, so that breathing remains effortless and silent. Without the pleura, each breath might feel rough or labored. With it, the lungs can move gracefully, rising and falling in harmony with the diaphragm and rib cage. The lungs are not identical. The right lung is broader and shorter, divided into 3 lobes. The left lung, slightly smaller, makes space for the heart and is divided into 2 lobes. This asymmetry is not a flaw but an adaptation, allowing the heart to nestle against the left side of the chest without interference. Together, the 2 lungs balance the work of respiration, each carrying its share of the load. each filled with networks of bronchi and bronchioles branching into the finest air passages. When air enters the lungs, it does not fill a single large cavity. Instead, it is distributed into millions of alveoli, tiny air sacs clustered at the ends of the smallest bronchioles. These alveoli give the lungs their spongy texture. Imagine holding a wet sponge. It feels light, porous, filled with countless small spaces. The lungs, though alive and delicate, are similar in principle. Their countless alveoli provide a vast surface area for gas exchange, so vast, in fact, that if spread flat, they would cover the area of a tennis court. This immense surface is hidden within the soft folds of lung tissue, available for every breath you take. Each alveolus is wrapped in a fine mesh of capillaries, the tiniest blood vessels of the circulatory system. The walls of both alveoli and capillaries are so thin that gases can pass easily across them. Oxygen moves from the air into the blood, while carbon dioxide moves from the blood into the air, ready to be exhaled. This exchange is the purpose of the entire respiratory system. The lungs provide the stage, the alveoli provide the surface, and the blood provides the transport. Every breath supports this quiet dance of molecules, sustaining life without pause. Though the lungs are light and elastic, they are also resilient. They are constantly exposed to the outside world through the air we breathe, yet they are equipped with defenses to protect against harm. The mucus that lines the airways continues into the lungs, trapping dust and microbes. The cilia sweep debris upward, away from the alveoli. Specialized immune cells patrol the lung tissue, ready to engulf particles or invaders that manage to slip through. Even as the lungs invite the world inward with every breath, they remain vigilant, ensuring that what is harmful is neutralized before it can cause damage. Breathing itself depends on the elasticity of lung tissue. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts, the chest expands, and the lungs stretch outward. When you exhale, the diaphragm relaxes, the chest narrows, and the lungs recoil like a spring returning to its resting shape. This elasticity is what makes breathing effortless. If the lungs were stiff or rigid, each breath would require conscious force. Instead, the tissue is supple, designed to expand and contract in harmony with the rhythm of life. To imagine the lungs more vividly, picture them as two great sponges, each soaked not with water but with air. With every inhalation, the sponge fills, each alveolus opening like a tiny bubble, ready to receive oxygen. With every exhalation, the sponge gently compresses, releasing carbon dioxide, emptying itself in preparation for the next breath. The cycle is unbroken, each expansion and contraction flowing into the next, as natural as the rise and fall of ocean waves against the shore. Beyond their structure, the lungs hold a quiet symbolism. They are the meeting point between the external world and the internal self. With each breath, the body opens itself to the air around it, drawing in what is needed and releasing what is no longer useful. The lungs mediate this exchange, balancing the needs of the body with the abundance of the environment. In this sense, the lungs are more than organs. They are living thresholds, gateways through which the self and the world are continuously joined. At rest, the lungs move gently, exchanging air in a quiet rhythm, but they are capable of more. During exertion, they expand further, drawing in larger volumes of oxygen to meet the demands of working muscles. During speech or song, they release air in controlled streams, providing the breath that carries the voice. During laughter, they expel air in bursts, creating the sounds of joy And even during silence, they continue their steady work, unnoticed yet essential. As you lie quietly, consider the lungs not as medical diagrams, but as living sponges, nestled within the chest, rising and falling with each breath. Picture the countless alveoli opening and closing, tiny chambers exchanging gases with every moment. Imagine the smooth pleura allowing the lungs to glide effortlessly against the chest wall. Think of the resilience of the tissue, elastic and strong, ready to expand again and again. The lungs are not simply organs of respiration. They are companions in every moment of life, working tirelessly to sustain you, adapting to your needs, and always ready for the next breath. And so, the journey of air continues. Having filled the lungs and reached the alveoli, oxygen is now poised to cross into the bloodstream, while carbon dioxide prepares to make its return journey outward. In the next stage, we will look closely at this exchange, at the tiny alveoli, and the graceful transfer of gases that keeps the body alive. 7. The alveoli and gas exchange. Now the air has reached the quietest and most delicate part of its journey, the alveoli. These tiny structures are the true heart of the respiratory system, the places where oxygen and carbon dioxide finally trade places, where the external world and the inner world of the body meet at the thinnest of boundaries. Though each alveolus is microscopic, together they form a vast landscape hidden within the lungs. There are about 300 million alveoli in the average pair of human lungs, each one a small chamber shaped like a bubble, elastic and moist. They cluster together like grapes on a vine, tiny spheres pressed side by side, each one surrounded by the finest network of capillaries. It is within these countless air sacs that the breath fulfills its purpose. The walls of the alveoli are so thin they are almost ethereal, just a single layer of cells separating the air inside from the blood flowing past. The capillaries that embrace them are equally delicate, their walls just one cell thick as well. Across this microscopic divide, gases move freely. Oxygen, abundant in the freshly inhaled air, slips through the alveolar wall, crosses into the blood, and binds to hemoglobin molecules within red blood cells. Carbon dioxide, gathered from the body's tissues as waste, passes in the opposite direction, from the blood into the alveoli, ready to be released with the next exhalation. This exchange is quiet, continuous, and efficient, driven not by force, but by the natural gradient of concentration. Oxygen moves where it is scarce. Carbon dioxide moves where it is plentiful, each molecule guided by the simple laws of diffusion. It is calming to imagine this process. Picture oxygen molecules as travelers, drifting gently across the alveolar wall, slipping into the bloodstream to begin their journey through the body. At the same time, imagine carbon dioxide molecules leaving the blood, moving out into the alveolus, preparing to be carried away with the next breath. This exchange happens in every alveolus, in every lung, with every inhalation and exhalation. It happens while we speak, while we work, while we sleep. It never pauses, never falters, unless the breath itself stops. The alveoli are not merely passive chambers. They are coated with a substance called surfactant, a thin film that reduces surface tension and prevents the delicate walls from collapsing. Without surfactant, the alveoli would stick together after each exhalation, making the effort of reopening them on the next breath immense. With surfactant, they open easily, like bubbles rising gently to the surface of water. This coating is essential, particularly at birth, when a newborn takes its first breath. and the alveoli inflate for the very first time. From that moment forward, surfactant ensures that breathing remains smooth and sustainable. Surrounding the alveoli is an intricate lacework of capillaries. These tiny vessels are so numerous that nearly every alveolus is wrapped in them, ensuring that no oxygen molecule is wasted. The blood arriving in these capillaries is dark with carbon dioxide, having traveled from the tissues of the body where oxygen was consumed and carbon dioxide produced. As the gases exchange across the alveolar wall, the blood brightens, taking on oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. This oxygen-rich blood then flows into larger vessels, eventually returning to the heart, which pumps it outward to nourish every cell. The entire process takes only a fraction of a second, yet it is repeated endlessly, providing the body with a steady supply of fuel. The efficiency of gas exchange is a testament to the design of the alveoli. Their number and structure create a surface area of extraordinary scale, more than 70 square meters in an adult human, larger than the floor of a small apartment. All of this area is folded within the compact space of the chest, tucked into the spongy tissue of the lungs, waiting silently for air to arrive. The sheer magnitude of this surface is what makes life possible, allowing enough oxygen to enter and enough carbon dioxide to leave with each cycle of breath. Even as this process is mechanical and chemical, it is also deeply calming to reflect on its rhythm. The oxygen that enters the blood fuels the beating of the heart, the movement of the muscles, and the quiet work of the brain. The carbon dioxide that leaves is not waste in a harsh sense, but simply part of the cycle, a natural product of energy use, carried back to the lungs to be released. There is balance in this exchange, a harmony between intake and release, between the needs of the body and the resources of the environment. The alveoli remind us of the intimacy of breathing. With each inhalation, the outside world comes directly into contact with the most delicate tissues of the body. There is no thick barrier, no wall of stone or armor. Instead, there is only a fragile layer of cells, so thin that gases can pass through with ease. This fragility is not weakness, but design, allowing life to flow in and out without resistance. It is a reminder that our connection to the world around us is immediate and profound. As you rest and imagine this process, think of the alveoli as countless small lanterns within the lungs, each one glowing softly as oxygen enters, each one dimming as carbon dioxide leaves. With every breath, the lanterns flicker in unison, a quiet constellation hidden within the chest. They do not seek attention, yet they sustain everything we are and everything we do. The lungs may feel solid and substantial from the outside, but within them lies this universe of tiny chambers, always busy, always alive, always exchanging. And so the air, having reached the alveoli, has completed its inward journey. Oxygen has entered the blood, carbon dioxide has left, and the cycle of life continues. The respiratory system has fulfilled its purpose for another breath, and yet it is not finished. The process of breathing also depends on the muscles that make this expansion and contraction possible. To understand the full picture, we must now turn to the diaphragm and the supporting muscles of breath, the silent engines that power this continuous rhythm. 8. The diaphragm and the muscles of breath. Up to this point, we have followed the air as it traveled into the lungs, down the branches of the bronchi, and into the delicate alveoli, where oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged. But all of this movement depends on one essential force, the mechanics of breathing itself. Air does not drift into the lungs on its own. It is drawn in by the subtle work of muscles that change the volume of the chest cavity, creating differences in pressure that gently guide air inward and outward. At the heart of this process lies the diaphragm, the primary muscle of respiration, assisted by other muscles of the chest, back, and abdomen. Together, create the rhythm of breath, a rise and fall so natural we rarely give it any thought. The diaphragm is a broad, dome-shaped sheet of muscle that separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity. At rest, it curves upward into the chest like a shallow dome. When it contracts, it flattens and moves downward, expanding the space within the chest. This expansion lowers the air pressure inside the lungs compared to the air outside the body. Because air naturally flows from regions of higher pressure to regions of lower pressure, it rushes inward, filling the lungs. When the diaphragm relaxes, it springs back to its domed shape. The chest cavity decreases in volume, and air is gently expelled. This simple cycle contraction and relaxation creates the foundation for breathing, repeated thousands of times each day without conscious effort. The diaphragm is not alone in this work. Between the ribs lie the intercostal muscles, arranged in layers. The external intercostal muscles pull the ribs upward and outward during inhalation, expanding the chest and assisting the diaphragm in drawing air inward. The internal intercostal muscles, on the other hand, help with forced exhalation, pulling the ribs downward and inward when the body needs to push air out more strongly, as in coughing or speaking. In quiet breathing, the diaphragm does most of the work, but these rib muscles join in when demands increase. Other muscles contribute as well. The abdominal muscles can contract to push the diaphragm upward, forcing air out of the lungs more quickly. Muscles of the neck and shoulders, such as the sternocleidomastoid and the scalenes, can help lift the rib cage during deep inhalation. Even the muscles of the back play a role in stabilizing the chest during breathing. In times of rest, these helpers are barely involved, but during exertion or when breathing is difficult, they step in, turning the act of respiration into a coordinated effort of the whole torso. This system works not through forceful effort but through gentle changes in pressure. The lungs themselves are passive. They do not pull in air or push it out. Instead, they respond to the movements of the diaphragm and chest wall, expanding when the chest expands and recoiling when it relaxes. The pressure differences are slight, yet they are enough to move liters of air with each breath. It is a reminder of how finely tuned the body is. Immense life-giving processes are carried out by subtle shifts, repeated endlessly without strain. When we breathe quietly at rest, this process is called tidal breathing, because the air flows in and out like the tide upon the shore. Each inhalation draws in just enough oxygen to meet the body's needs, and each exhalation releases the carbon dioxide produced by metabolism. During sleep, tidal breathing slows, the diaphragm rising and falling in a steady rhythm, unbroken and soothing. When the body is active, however, breathing changes. The diaphragm contracts more strongly. The intercostals lift the chest more powerfully, and additional muscles join in. This allows larger volumes of air to enter and leave, meeting the increased demand for oxygen and the need to remove more carbon dioxide. Yet even then, the principle is the same. Expand the chest, lower the pressure, draw air in, relax the chest, raise the pressure, let air flow out. It is calming to reflect on the constancy of this system. The diaphragm never stops working, not in waking hours, not in dreams, even when you are unaware of it, even when the mind drifts far from the body. The diaphragm continues its cycle of contraction and relaxation. It is a silent companion, a faithful rhythm keeper that sustains life moment by moment. Unlike many muscles, it does not fatigue in the same way. Instead, it is built for endurance, able to contract thousands upon thousands of times each day without pause. Beyond its mechanics, breathing also carries with it an element of control. Unlike the beating of the heart or the filtering of the kidneys, breathing is both automatic and voluntary. The diaphragm and its companions continue to move under the guidance of the brainstem, but at any moment, you can choose to alter the rhythm. You can take a deep breath, hold it, sigh, or breathe more quickly. This dual nature, both unconscious and conscious, makes breathing unique. It provides a bridge between the automatic functions of the body and the awareness of the mind. Practices of meditation, relaxation, and even singing or speech make use of this bridge, using the muscles of respiration to shape both body and thought. Imagine now the diaphragm beneath your lungs, rising and falling with each breath. Picture its dome flattening as air flows inward, then arching gently upward as the lungs release their air. Imagine the ribs lifting and lowering, the intercostals stretching and relaxing, the whole chest expanding and contracting in a rhythm as old as life itself. Breathing is not forced, not labored, but effortless, like waves lapping the shore or leaves rustling softly in the breeze. And so, with the diaphragm and its companion muscles, the cycle of breathing is made possible. They are the quiet engines of respiration, drawing air into the lungs and guiding it outward again. Through their work, oxygen reaches the alveoli, and carbon dioxide leaves the body. In the next stage of our journey, we will follow oxygen as it enters the bloodstream, binds to hemoglobin, and is carried to the farthest reaches of the body, bringing life and energy to every cell. 9. Oxygen in the bloodstream. Now that oxygen has crossed the delicate walls of the alveoli, it enters a new stage of its journey. It leaves behind the airy chambers of the lungs and steps into the flowing rivers of the circulatory system, where it will be carried to every cell in the body. The bloodstream is not simply a means of transport. It is a vast and intricate network, a living highway of vessels guided by the beating of the heart. Within it, oxygen finds its place in red blood cells, attaching to hemoglobin molecules that serve as carriers. From here, it will travel to the farthest corners of the body, fueling every process that sustains life. Each red blood cell is like a tiny vessel in its own right, shaped as a biconcave disc, flexible enough to squeeze through the narrowest capillaries. Inside, millions of hemoglobin molecules wait to receive oxygen. Hemoglobin is a protein, shaped around an iron atom that can bind to oxygen with great efficiency. When oxygen enters the bloodstream at the lungs, it quickly attaches to these iron centers, transforming the blood from a darker, bluish red to a bright, vibrant scarlet. This change in color is visible in the difference between oxygen-rich arterial blood and oxygen-poor venous blood. Though both are always shades of red, the transformation marks the moment oxygen becomes ready to journey outward. Hemoglobin is more than just a passive carrier. It is responsive, releasing oxygen where it is needed most. In tissues that are active in consuming energy, oxygen levels are lower and carbon dioxide levels higher. This environment signals hemoglobin to let go of its oxygen, allowing it to slip into the tissues. In areas where demand is less, hemoglobin holds onto its load, saving it for where it will be required. In this way, the bloodstream does not simply deliver oxygen evenly, it distributes it intelligently, guided by the needs of the body. The blood vessels themselves form a vast network, reaching every organ and every tissue. The pulmonary veins carry oxygen-rich blood from the lungs back to the heart, specifically to the left atrium. From there, it passes into the left ventricle, which contracts powerfully to send the blood out through the aorta, the great artery of the body. The aorta branches into smaller arteries, then arterioles, and finally into capillaries, where the oxygen is delivered to cells. This branching system mirrors the structure of the lungs, each large vessel dividing into smaller ones until they reach the tiniest spaces, ensuring no cell is left without access to oxygen. In the capillaries, the exchange is intimate and precise. The walls are only a single cell, thick, allowing oxygen to slip easily from the red blood cells into the surrounding tissues. There, it diffuses into the fluid between cells, and finally into the cells themselves, where it is consumed in the production of energy. At the same time, carbon dioxide, a byproduct of this process, moves in the opposite direction from the cells into the capillaries, where it dissolves in the plasma or attaches to hemoglobin, ready to be carried back to the lungs. The role of oxygen in the body is profound. It is the final acceptor in the chain of reactions that produce energy within the mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses of the cell. Without oxygen, this chain would stop, and energy could not be produced efficiently. Every thought, every movement, every heartbeat depends on oxygen reaching the cells. The bloodstream, therefore, is more than a transport system. It is the lifeline that ensures the continuous production of energy throughout the body. It is soothing to imagine the journey of oxygen in this way. Picture the red blood cells flowing steadily along the vessels, each one carrying its cargo of oxygen molecules. They drift through arteries, branch into arterioles, and slip into capillaries, releasing their oxygen like lanterns, scattering light in the dark. In return, they gather carbon dioxide, carrying it back toward the lungs, where it will be exchanged once more. This cycle is constant, a ceaseless circulation that mirrors the rhythm of breath itself. The relationship between the respiratory and circulatory systems is inseparable. The lungs provide the oxygen, but the blood carries it. The blood removes carbon dioxide, but the lungs expel it. Each system depends on the other, neither sufficient alone. Together, they form a partnership that sustains life, a dance of air and blood, of breath and pulse. Beyond its mechanics, oxygen in the bloodstream connects us to our environment in a deeply personal way. Every molecule of oxygen we breathe once belonged to the atmosphere, perhaps released by a tree, a patch of grass, or a wave crashing on the ocean's surface. As we inhale, these molecules enter our lungs, join our blood, and travel through us, becoming part of our being. Then, as we exhale, carbon dioxide leaves us and returns to the air, where it may nourish plants in turn. This cycle links us to the natural world in every breath, a reminder that life is never isolated but always interconnected. As you rest and reflect, imagine the bloodstream as a quiet river system within you, endlessly flowing. Picture the red blood cells as boats drifting along these rivers, their sails filled with oxygen, their holds ready to release their cargo where it is needed. Imagine the heart as the central pump, sending them outward with each beat, ensuring that no part of the body is left behind. With each breath, the oxygen is replenished, the journey renewed, and the cycle continues without pause. And so, oxygen in the bloodstream completes one stage of its journey. It has entered the lungs, crossed into the blood, bound to hemoglobin, and traveled outward to sustain every cell. Meanwhile, Carbon dioxide, gathered as a byproduct, is carried back toward the lungs, ready to be released into the air once more. In the next stage, we will turn to this outward journey, exploring the role of carbon dioxide in the body and the elegant process of exhalation that restores balance with every breath. 10. Carbon dioxide and exhalation. As oxygen completes its journey through the bloodstream, entering cells and fueling the production of energy, another substance emerges in its place, carbon dioxide. This gas, often thought of only as waste, is an essential part of the cycle of life. It is produced within the mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses of every cell, as they break down nutrients to release energy. With every movement, every thought, every silent function of the body, carbon dioxide is formed. Yet just as oxygen must be brought in without pause, carbon dioxide must be carried away. Too much of it would disturb the delicate balance of the body, altering the chemistry of the blood and interfering with cellular function. The process of exhalation, therefore, is as vital as inhalation, for it is through this outward breath that the body restores balance and harmony. The journey of carbon dioxide begins in the tissues, where it diffuses from the cells into the surrounding capillaries. Once in the bloodstream, it takes three main forms. Some of it dissolves directly in the plasma, carried in liquid form. Some binds to hemoglobin, attaching at different sites than oxygen. But the majority, nearly 70%, is transformed into bicarbonate, a process that takes place within red blood cells. An enzyme called carbonic anhydrase catalyzes this transformation, allowing carbon dioxide to combine with water to form carbonic acid, which quickly breaks apart into bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. This clever chemical reaction not only allows the blood to carry more carbon dioxide, but also helps regulate the pH of the body, keeping it within the narrow range needed for life. Carried in these forms, carbon dioxide flows back toward the lungs, traveling through the veins and into the right side of the heart. With each heartbeat, it is pumped into the pulmonary arteries, branching into smaller vessels until it reaches the capillaries wrapped around the alveoli. Here, at the delicate interface between air and blood, the process reverses. Carbon dioxide leaves the plasma, detaches from hemoglobin, and shifts from bicarbonate back into gaseous form. It then diffuses across the thin alveolar wall into the air sacs, moving from an area of higher concentration in the blood to a lower concentration in the alveoli. From this moment, it is poised to leave the body with the next breath. Exhalation is powered primarily by relaxation. When the diaphragm and intercostal muscles release their contraction, the chest cavity decreases in volume. The elastic tissue of the lungs recoils, pressing gently against the air inside. The pressure rises slightly above that of the outside air, and the breath flows outward. Unlike inhalation, which requires active contraction of muscles, exhalation at rest is largely passive. It is the release of tension, the return of structures to their natural shape. Only during forceful breathing, such as speaking, singing, or exercise, do additional muscles join in, pushing the air out more strongly. Most of the time, exhalation is quiet, soft, and unhurried. It is calming to think of exhalation not as the discarding of waste, but as a release, a letting go. With each outward breath, carbon dioxide is carried away, freeing the blood of its burden. This release restores balance, keeping the chemistry of the body in harmony. The act of breathing out, then, is as nourishing as breathing in. One provides oxygen, the other removes carbon dioxide. Together, they complete the cycle, a rhythm of exchange that sustains life. Carbon dioxide itself has roles beyond simply being removed. Its levels in the blood help regulate breathing, for the body is more sensitive to carbon dioxide concentration than to oxygen levels. Specialized receptors in the brainstem and blood vessels monitor the acidity of the blood, which changes as carbon dioxide rises or falls. When levels climb too high, the brain signals the diaphragm and respiratory muscles to increase their activity, drawing in more air and pushing more out. In this way, carbon dioxide acts as a guide, ensuring that breathing adjusts moment by moment to meet the needs of the body. The outward flow of air during exhalation retraces the path of inhalation in reverse. Air moves from the alveoli, through the bronchioles and bronchi, up the trachea, past the larynx, and finally out through the nose or mouth. Along the way, it carries with it not only carbon dioxide but also water vapor and traces of other gases. Each exhalation is therefore a blend of what was once outside the body and what the body has transformed. With every breath, we share this mixture with the surrounding air, contributing to the endless cycle between living beings and the environment. Plants, in turn, use carbon dioxide in photosynthesis, returning oxygen to the atmosphere. In this way, exhalation is not simply the end of the breath, but part of a larger exchange that connects us to the world. It is soothing to imagine this outward journey. Picture the air, now carrying carbon dioxide, rising gently through the bronchi, moving steadily up the trachea, and flowing softly out of the nostrils or lips. Each exhale is a release, a quiet surrender, a return to the environment of what is no longer needed. Just as inhalation is like drawing nourishment from the world, exhalation is like giving something back, completing the circle. As you rest, notice how natural this rhythm is. Inhalation and exhalation, intake and release, arrival and departure. Neither is complete without the other. The body does not cling to the carbon dioxide it produces, nor does it resist letting it go. The breath is a continuous movement, always renewing itself, always balancing. With each cycle, oxygen enters and carbon dioxide leaves, the body refreshed again and again. And so, the story of exhalation reminds us that breathing is not only about drawing in life, but also about letting go. Just as the lungs are designed to open and receive, they are also designed to empty and release. Together, these two movements form the quiet rhythm of existence, a rhythm that continues in waking and in sleep, unbroken and sustaining. In the next stage, we will look more closely at how this rhythm is guided not just by muscles and lungs, but by the nervous system itself. For behind every breath lies a hidden conductor, the brain, which sets the pace and adjusts the flow, ensuring that respiration continues without interruption. 11. The nervous system and breathing control. Behind the quiet rise and fall of the chest, behind the diaphragm's gentle movements and the lungs' endless exchange, there lies a guiding intelligence. This intelligence is not conscious thought, not willful effort, but the deeper rhythm set by the nervous system. Breathing is both automatic and voluntary, a rare meeting point between the unconscious processes of life and the choices of the mind. At its core, it is the nervous system that keeps the breath steady, adjusting its pace in response to the needs of the body, ensuring that respiration continues even when we are unaware. The central command for breathing resides in the brainstem, in regions called the medulla oblongata and the pons. These structures, ancient in their function, are responsible for the basic rhythm of life. Within them lie clusters of neurons that generate the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation, much like a conductor keeping time for an orchestra. These rhythmic impulses travel through nerves to the diaphragm and intercostal muscles, prompting them to contract and relax in a steady cycle. Whether you are awake, asleep, or deeply absorbed in thought, these centers maintain your breathing without interruption. The medulla plays the central role. It contains two key groups of neurons: the dorsal respiratory group, which governs inspiration, and the ventral respiratory group, which becomes active during forced breathing, such as heavy exertion or speaking. The pons, just above, refines this rhythm, smoothing the transitions between inhalation and exhalation, preventing abrupt or irregular shifts. Together, they create the calm, continuous flow of breathing that carries on throughout the day and night. This rhythm is not rigid but flexible, adjusting constantly to the needs of the body. Specialized chemoreceptors, located in the carotid arteries and the aorta, monitor the levels of carbon dioxide, oxygen, and acidity in the blood. Of these, carbon dioxide is the most powerful signal. When its concentration rises, the blood becomes more acidic, and the chemoreceptors send urgent messages to the brainstem. Breathe faster, breathe deeper. The respiratory centers respond by increasing the activity of the diaphragm and chest muscles, drawing in more oxygen and releasing more carbon dioxide. When carbon dioxide levels fall, the opposite occurs, and breathing slows. In this way, the nervous system fine-tunes every breath, moment by moment, to match the body's ever-changing demands. Nerve pathways carry these commands from the brainstem to the muscles. The phrenic nerves, emerging from the spinal cord in the neck, travel downward to the diaphragm, carrying signals that trigger each contraction. The intercostal nerves extend outward to the muscles between the ribs, guiding their movement as they lift and expand the chest. These signals are continuous, arriving in steady bursts, ensuring that the cycle of inhalation and exhalation never falters. Though breathing is automatic, it is also under voluntary control. Higher centers of the brain, particularly the cerebral cortex, can override the brainstem temporarily. This is why you can hold your breath, sigh deeply, or speak in long sentences without needing to inhale at once. Singing, chanting, and deliberate breathing practices all make use of this voluntary control. Yet even here, the brainstem remains ready to reassert its command. Hold your breath long enough, and eventually the rising levels of carbon dioxide will overwhelm conscious choice, forcing you to breathe again. This dual nature, both automatic and voluntary, makes breathing unique among bodily functions, bridging the unconscious rhythms of survival with the conscious rhythms of expression. Other influences shape breathing as well. The limbic system, the seat of emotion, can alter the rhythm. Fear may quicken the breath, while calmness may slow it. Laughter and sobbing are expressions of emotion carried on the breath, guided by neural circuits that link feelings to respiratory patterns. Even posture and movement influence breathing, as signals from muscles and joints inform the brain about the body's position, prompting adjustments to the rhythm. It is calming to imagine the nervous system as the hidden conductor of the breath. Picture the brainstem as a quiet, steady metronome, sending pulses down the phrenic nerves, guiding the diaphragm in its rise and fall. Imagine the chemoreceptors as watchful sentinels, constantly sensing the blood, sending messages upward to fine-tune the rhythm. Visualize the higher brain as a guest musician, occasionally stepping forward to guide the flow in song, speech, or deliberate silence, before yielding again to the deeper rhythm below. The entire system is coordinated, seamless, and unbroken, ensuring that breath continues, whether in stillness or in motion. This hidden control allows breathing to be both steady and adaptive. It speeds up during exertion, slows during sleep, shifts with emotion, and responds to thought. It is as flexible as it is constant, always matching the needs of the moment. And through it all, the nervous system ensures that oxygen enters, carbon dioxide leaves, and the body remains in balance. As you lie quietly, consider the wonder of this design. You need not think about breathing, yet you may, if you choose. You need not guide it, yet you may shape it in song or in silence. The nervous system provides both constancy and freedom, both rhythm and variation, ensuring that respiration is always aligned with life's needs. And so, behind every breath is this quiet conductor, the nervous system, keeping time with gentle precision. In the next stage, we will explore how breathing adapts to different circumstances, how the rhythm changes during sleep, exercise, and even moments of stillness, always adjusting to serve the body's needs. 12. Breathing in, sleep, rest, and activity. The rhythm of breathing, though steady and unbroken, is not fixed in one pattern. It adapts gracefully to the changing states of the body, shifting with rest, with movement, with thought, and with sleep. The nervous system and muscles of respiration respond to these states, shaping the breath to meet different needs. Whether the body is in quiet stillness, immersed in deep sleep, or moving in exertion, breathing follows in harmony, always adjusting to sustain balance. In moments of rest, when the body is calm and the demands for energy are modest, breathing is gentle and shallow. The diaphragm rises and falls with little effort. The chest expands softly, and the breath flows like a tide against the shore, unhurried, steady, and quiet. This state is called tidal breathing, because the volume of air moved in and out resembles the slow rhythm of the ocean's waves. At rest, each inhalation draws in just enough oxygen to replenish the blood, and each exhalation releases the carbon dioxide produced by metabolism. The cycle is balanced, unstrained, and sustainable. During sleep, breathing changes subtly. In the deeper stages of non-REM sleep, the rhythm becomes slower, more regular, and more relaxed. The diaphragm continues its steady work, while the intercostal muscles become less active, allowing the chest wall to move with minimal effort. The entire body rests in rhythm with the breath, energy conserved, demands reduced. In REM sleep, when dreams arise, the rhythm may become more irregular, with brief pauses or sudden changes in pace. Yet even then, the brainstem maintains control, ensuring that breathing never ceases, even as the higher centers of the brain wander through dreams. The breath in sleep becomes a companion of rest, a soft background rhythm that carries the body through the night. In contrast, during activity and exertion, breathing transforms into something more dynamic. When muscles demand more oxygen and produce more carbon dioxide, the nervous system responds immediately. The diaphragm contracts more forcefully, the intercostals lift the ribs higher, and accessory muscles of the neck and shoulders join in, expanding the chest more fully. Breaths become deeper and faster, drawing in larger volumes of air. The tidal volume, the amount of air moved with each breath, increases dramatically, sometimes many times greater than in rest. This adaptation ensures that oxygen supply keeps pace with demand and that carbon dioxide is swiftly expelled. Without this change, physical activity would quickly become impossible. The transition between these states is smooth and seamless. One does not notice the shift from resting breath to active breath, or from waking breath to sleeping breath. The nervous system orchestrates these changes silently, adjusting muscle effort, frequency, and depth in response to signals from the body. Chemoreceptors monitor carbon dioxide and oxygen levels. Baroreceptors sense changes in blood pressure, and stretch receptors in the lungs provide feedback about expansion. All of these signals combine to refine the breath, making it appropriate to the moment. Emotions also influence breathing, shaping it in subtle ways. Calmness brings slower, deeper breaths, while excitement or fear quickens the rhythm. Laughter interrupts it with bursts of exhalation. Sobbing alters its pace with irregular sighs. In this way, breathing mirrors the inner state of the mind, a bridge between physiology and emotion. Even during stillness, the breath can reveal the body's unspoken state, shifting gently in response to thought and feeling. It is calming to reflect on this adaptability. Breathing is not a rigid clock, but a flexible rhythm, flowing with the body's changing needs. At rest, it is soft and effortless. In sleep, it is steady and protective. In activity, it is strong and responsive. Through all of these states, the cycle of oxygen intake and carbon dioxide release continues without interruption. The lungs, diaphragm, and nervous system adjust with ease, maintaining balance no matter what the body encounters. Imagine lying quietly, feeling the breath as it slows in rest. Picture the chest rising gently, the diaphragm lowering with ease, the lungs filling with just enough air. Imagine then the same body in motion, the breath deepening, chest expanding, airflow quickening to meet the needs of active muscles. Picture finally the body in sleep, the breath slowing again, regular and calm, carrying the sleeper through dreams and silence. In each state, the breath changes, yet always fulfills its purpose, sustaining life, maintaining balance, and adapting with grace. This adaptability is one of the most remarkable features of respiration. It shows that breathing is not merely mechanical but responsive, intertwined with every aspect of living. It supports us in stillness, in motion, in thought, in sleep. It follows us through every state of being, never ceasing, never failing, always adjusting to what is needed in that moment. And so, the rhythm of breathing, in rest, in sleep, and in activity, demonstrates the elegance of this system. It is constant yet flexible, automatic yet adaptable. In the next stage, we will turn to the protective mechanisms of the respiratory system, the ways in which the body defends its delicate airways and lungs from harm, ensuring that each breath remains clear and safe. 13. Defenses of the respiratory system. Though breathing feels effortless, every inhalation draws in more than just oxygen. Along with the life-giving air, countless particles drift invisibly through the atmosphere: dust, pollen, microbes, and other substances that could irritate or harm the delicate tissues of the lungs if they were allowed to settle freely. The respiratory system, therefore, is equipped with a series of defenses. These protections work silently and continuously, filtering, trapping, and neutralizing unwanted particles before they can reach the alveoli. They form a shield, a gentle but effective barrier, allowing the breath to remain clear and the lungs to remain safe. The very first defense begins at the entrance to the airway, the nose. The nasal passages are lined with tiny hairs, called vibrissae, which catch larger particles, such as dust and pollen. The air then flows deeper into the nasal cavity, where it meets a lining coated with mucus. This mucus is sticky and moist, designed to trap smaller particles, microbes, and irritants. The air is warmed and humidified at the same time, prepared for its journey toward the lungs. Already, before it has passed into the throat, much of the debris carried in the breath has been caught and neutralized. Farther along the airway, another protective system takes over. The trachea and bronchi are lined with a special epithelium covered in cilia, microscopic hair-like structures that move rhythmically in waves. These cilia work in unison, like oars on a boat, sweeping the mucus layer upward toward the throat. This process is sometimes called the mucociliary escalator. It ensures that trapped particles, bacteria, or viruses are steadily moved away from the lungs. Once they reach the throat, they can be swallowed into the stomach, where acids destroy them, or expelled more directly by coughing. This constant upward movement is quiet and unnoticed, yet it is vital to keeping the lower lungs clear of debris. Coughing itself is a protective reflex, a powerful way for the body to clear the airways when larger particles or irritants slip past the first defenses. When receptors in the airway detect irritation, the brain triggers a sudden contraction of the diaphragm and chest muscles, forcing air out of the lungs at high speed. This rush of air dislodges and ejects the irritant, protecting the lungs from harm, though it can seem forceful compared to the calm rhythm of ordinary breathing. Coughing is a guardian response, serving the body by preserving the openness of the airways. Sneezing plays a similar role, but at the level of the nasal passages, expelling irritants before they enter the lower respiratory tract. Within the alveoli, where defenses must be especially delicate, another guardian is present, the alveolar macrophage. These are specialized immune cells that patrol the inner surfaces of the lungs, engulfing any particles or microbes that have made it past the earlier barriers. They act quietly and continuously, breaking down invaders and preventing infection. Unlike the sweeping action of cilia, macrophages work individually, like sentinels stationed in the depths of the lungs. Their presence ensures that the most vital spaces of the respiratory system remain clear for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Even the simple act of breath holding or altering the rhythm of breathing can serve protective roles. When exposed to smoke or irritants, the body may pause the breath or shift into shorter, faster breaths, minimizing exposure. Reflexes embedded in the nervous system guide these changes automatically, sparing the lungs from harm without requiring conscious thought. The defenses of the respiratory system extend beyond the mechanical and cellular. The structure of the airways themselves provides protection. Their branching pattern, with countless divisions into narrower passages, helps trap particles before they can reach the alveoli. The turbulence of airflow at these junctions encourages debris to collide with the mucus lining and become trapped. Even the moistness of the airway lining serves a purpose, preventing dryness that could otherwise leave tissues vulnerable. It is soothing to reflect on this quiet guardianship. Each breath enters a pathway that has been carefully designed to welcome oxygen but resist intrusion. Hairs at the entrance filter the coarse debris. Mucus catches finer particles, while cilia sweep them steadily away. Reflexes such as coughing and sneezing act as forceful protectors when needed, and deep within, immune cells stand ready to defend the most delicate structures. The entire system works together, layer upon layer, to safeguard the lungs. These protections allow us to breathe freely, without needing to worry about the invisible world in the air around us. The respiratory system does not block the breath but shapes it, filtering and guarding while still allowing oxygen to flow easily to the blood. It achieves a balance between openness and defense, between welcoming life and shielding against harm. As you imagine this system, Picture the air entering the nose, passing through a soft corridor lined with protective barriers. Picture the cilia waving in silent rhythm, carrying debris upward like a slow-moving current. Imagine the macrophages deep in the lungs, calmly patrolling, clearing away what does not belong. These defenses are unseen, yet they never rest. They are the quiet guardians of every breath, keeping the pathway open for the life-sustaining rhythm of respiration. And so, as oxygen flows inward and carbon dioxide outward, the body is protected at every step. The breath remains clear, the lungs remain safe, and the cycle continues unbroken. In the next stage, we will turn to the deeper history of this system, exploring how breathing itself has evolved from the earliest life in the oceans to the complex lungs that sustain us today. 14. Evolution of lungs and breathing. To understand the respiratory system fully, it helps to step back in time, far beyond human history, into the vast sweep of evolution. The lungs we carry today are not sudden inventions, but the result of a long and gradual unfolding, shaped over millions of years. Breathing, the act of drawing gases from the environment to sustain life, has existed in many forms. From the earliest life in the oceans to the lungs of mammals, each step in this journey reflects adaptation, survival, and the quiet persistence of life's rhythm. The earliest organisms did not have lungs or gills. They lived in water, small enough that oxygen could simply diffuse through their membranes. For single-celled life, this was sufficient, but as creatures grew larger and more complex, diffusion alone was no longer enough. Specialized structures for gas exchange began to appear, surfaces that maximized contact between the environment and the body. In water, this meant gills, delicate filaments rich with blood vessels, capable of drawing oxygen from the water that flowed across them. Gills became the earliest sophisticated respiratory organs, serving fish and many aquatic animals for hundreds of millions of years. But water, though abundant with life, carries less oxygen than air. To survive in environments where oxygen was scarce, or when waters became stagnant, some ancient fish developed adaptations. They evolved the ability to gulp air from the surface, swallowing bubbles into primitive sacs that lined their guts. These sacs, at first just outpouchings of the digestive system, allowed them to extract oxygen directly from the air. Over time, these simple air sacs became more complex, forming the foundations of lungs. One remarkable group of creatures still alive today preserves this ancient adaptation: the lungfish. These fish possess both gills and lungs, capable of breathing underwater or drawing air directly when needed. During dry seasons, when rivers shrink and oxygen levels drop, lungfish burrow into the mud and rely almost entirely on their lungs, surviving where others cannot. In them, we see a living window into the transition from water breathing to air breathing, a bridge between the ancient world and our own. The great evolutionary leap came when vertebrates ventured from water onto land. Amphibians, such as frogs, represent this stage. They still carry gills in their early life as tadpoles, but as they mature, they develop lungs to breathe air. Their lungs are simpler than those of mammals, more like hollow sacs with limited surface area. To compensate, they also breathe through their skin, which remains moist and capable of absorbing oxygen. Amphibians reveal a transitional stage, balancing between two worlds, breathing both through lungs and through the tissues of their skin. As reptiles emerged, lungs became more advanced. The inner walls of reptilian lungs began to fold and branch, increasing the surface area for gas exchange. This was an important step toward efficiency, allowing reptiles to thrive fully on land no longer dependent on moist skin for breathing. Birds and mammals, which evolved later, refined the lungs even further. Birds developed an especially remarkable system of air sacs and unidirectional airflow, allowing them to extract oxygen far more efficiently than mammals. This system supports the high metabolic demands of flight, ensuring that fresh air continually flows through their lungs in a single direction. Mammals, including humans, took a different path. Instead of unidirectional airflow, our lungs use tidal breathing, the in and out rhythm that fills and empties alveoli with each breath. To make this efficient, mammalian lungs developed immense branching networks, dividing into countless bronchioles that end in millions of alveoli. This design maximizes surface area, allowing enough oxygen to enter to sustain the warm-blooded, high-energy lifestyles of mammals. The alveoli, with their delicate walls and vast coverage, are the pinnacle of this evolutionary path, turning every breath into a meeting point between the air outside and the blood within. In essence, the lungs are a story of adaptation, from simple diffusion in single-celled organisms, to gills in fish, to air sacs in ancient creatures, to the alveolar lungs of mammals. The need for oxygen has shaped life at every turn. Each step has been about efficiency, about drawing in enough of this vital gas to sustain the energy of living. It is calming to reflect on how breathing connects us to this long history. When we inhale, we participate in a rhythm that has been refined over eons. The lungs within us carry echoes of ancient fish that first gulped air, of amphibians that balanced between water and land, of reptiles that expanded their lungs with folds, and of mammals that multiplied their alveoli. Every breath we take carries this lineage, a reminder that we are part of a continuum that stretches back to the earliest days of life on Earth. And beyond the story of human lungs, the diversity of breathing in the natural world continues to inspire awe. Some creatures use gills, some lungs, some both. Insects rely on intricate tubes called tracheae that deliver air directly to their tissues. Some animals can pause their breathing for long stretches, while others must breathe constantly. Life has found countless ways to solve the same problem: how to draw oxygen inward and release carbon dioxide outward. The lungs are simply one of the most elegant answers to this ancient question. As you picture your own lungs rising and falling, consider the countless generations of life that shaped them. Imagine the ancient fish surfacing for air, the amphibian shifting from water to land, the reptile drawing deeper breaths, the bird soaring on efficient airflow, and finally the mammal expanding lungs filled with alveoli. The act of breathing is not only a present necessity, but also a living memory of evolution, carried within every breath. And so, the lungs remind us not only of life's fragility, but also of its endurance. They are ancient and modern, delicate and efficient, a gift shaped over time. In the next stage, we will look outward, beyond humans, to the ways other animals breathe, each one a variation on this essential theme, each one a reminder of life's adaptability and ingenuity. 15. Breathing in other animals. Though human lungs are remarkable in their design, they are only one answer to the universal challenge of obtaining oxygen. Across the animal kingdom, life has evolved a stunning variety of solutions for breathing, each suited to the environment and the demands of survival. From the depths of the ocean to the heights of the sky, animals breathe in ways that reflect their form, their needs, and their place in nature's vast web. To compare them with our own lungs is not only fascinating but also calming, a reminder that the rhythm of respiration takes many shapes, yet always serves the same purpose: to bring oxygen in and let carbon dioxide go. Among fish, the most ancient and enduring solution is the gill. Gills are delicate, feathery structures rich with blood vessels, designed to extract oxygen directly from water. Water flows across these filaments, either drawn in through the mouth and out the gill slits, or, in some species, pumped continuously as the fish swims. Because water holds less oxygen than air, gills are remarkably efficient at extracting what little is available. Some fish even use a countercurrent exchange system in which blood flows in the opposite direction of water, maximizing the transfer of oxygen. This system allows fish to thrive in environments where oxygen levels are low, proving that nature has found many pathways to sustain life. Amphibians, like frogs and salamanders, breathe in more than one way. Many begin life as aquatic larvae with gills, then develop lungs as they mature. Adult amphibians often rely on a combination of lungs, skin, and the lining of the mouth for respiration. Their skin, kept moist, acts as a secondary respiratory surface, allowing oxygen to diffuse directly into the blood. This dual method suits their lives both in water and on land, reflecting their role as transitional creatures between aquatic and terrestrial worlds. Reptiles, having left behind the need for moist skin, rely almost entirely on lungs. Their lungs are more advanced than those of amphibians, with inner folds that increase surface area and improve efficiency. Turtles, snakes, and lizards breathe in this way, though each has adapted the mechanics differently. Crocodiles, for example, have a more complex system with one-way airflow through their lungs, resembling the system seen in birds. This design provides them with greater efficiency, supporting their active and predatory lifestyles. Birds, however, represent one of the most extraordinary breathing systems in the animal kingdom. Unlike mammals, birds do not use tidal breathing, where air flows in and out of the same passages. Instead, they have a unidirectional airflow system that allows fresh air to pass continuously through their lungs in one direction. Air sacs throughout their bodies act as bellows, keeping air moving so that oxygen is extracted efficiently with every breath. This system supports the high metabolic demands of flight, ensuring that birds can sustain powerful wing beats and soar at altitudes where oxygen is scarce. When one imagines a bird gliding silently in the sky, its breath is part of the marvel, an adaptation perfectly suited to its way of life. Insects breathe in yet another way. They do not have lungs or gills, but rely on a network of tubes called tracheae. These tubes branch throughout the body, delivering air directly to tissues. Openings along the body, called spiracles, allow air to enter and exit, bypassing the need for a circulatory system to carry gases. This direct system works well for small creatures, allowing oxygen to reach every cell quickly. For insects, breathing is not driven by a diaphragm or chest expansion, but by the diffusion of gases along these tubes, sometimes aided by body movements that pump air through the tracheae. It is a completely different answer to the same question, showing how varied life can be. Even within mammals, diversity exists. Whales, dolphins, and seals breathe with lungs like ours, but have adapted to long dives beneath the sea. Their lungs and blood are rich with oxygen-binding molecules, allowing them to store and conserve oxygen efficiently. When they surface, they exchange air rapidly, filling their lungs with a single deep breath before diving again. Bats, the only mammals capable of true flight, carry lungs adapted to sustain the energy of flight, more efficient in gas exchange than those of many ground-dwelling mammals. Each species carries its own variation, fine-tuned to its way of living. It is calming to reflect on these differences. Fish, drawing oxygen from water through gills. Amphibians, breathing with both skin and lungs. Reptiles, expanding their lungs with steady efficiency. Birds, flying with the gift of unidirectional flow. Insects, relying on tracheal tubes. And mammals, including us, expanding alveoli with tidal breaths. Each method is a different thread in the same tapestry, the tapestry of respiration, the rhythm that unites all living things. And yet, despite these differences, the purpose remains the same. Oxygen is drawn in, carbon dioxide is released, energy is sustained, and life continues. The breath of a bird in flight, the sigh of a whale surfacing, the ripple of a fish beneath water, all are echoes of the same need, the same exchange that has sustained life for billions of years. As you rest, imagine these many ways of breathing. Picture the gills of fish shimmering as water flows past them. Picture the lungs of a frog filling softly as it sits near the water's edge. Picture the unbroken airflow through a bird's body as it glides on a current of air. Picture the tracheae of insects, tiny passages carrying oxygen directly into their cells. And picture your own lungs, rising and falling in rhythm with them all, part of the shared cycle of life on Earth. And so, by looking across the animal kingdom, we see that breathing is not a single design but many, each shaped by environment and need. In the next stage, we will return to humans, considering how the respiratory system links with other systems of the body, working in harmony to maintain health and balance. 16. The link between breathing and other systems. The respiratory system does not stand alone. Though it is responsible for drawing oxygen inward and releasing carbon dioxide outward, its work would mean little if it were not tied closely to the other systems of the body. Breathing is, in truth, a thread woven through all of life's functions, linked to circulation, to digestion, to the nervous system, and even to the balance of the body's chemistry. Each inhalation and exhalation ripples outward, affecting organs far beyond the lungs, sustaining harmony within the whole. The most immediate and intimate connection is with the circulatory system. The lungs and the blood are inseparable partners, one providing the oxygen, the other carrying it. Without circulation, the oxygen in the alveoli would have no pathway to reach the cells. Without the lungs, the bloodstream would have no means of replenishing its supply. Every heartbeat and every breath are linked, each supporting the other in a quiet dance of rhythm. When the heart pumps more quickly during exertion, breathing deepens to match it. When breathing slows in rest, the heart eases in response. Together, they form the dual pulse of life, air flowing in waves, blood flowing in currents. The digestive system, too, is connected to breathing. The energy released from food cannot be unlocked without oxygen. Within the mitochondria, glucose and other nutrients are broken down in a process that requires oxygen at every step. This is why food nourishes us only when paired with breath nutrients supply the fuel. But oxygen provides the spark that allows energy to be released. The byproducts of this process, carbon dioxide and water, are carried away by the respiratory system, completing the cycle. Thus, every meal is quietly dependent on the lungs, and every breath is tied to the nourishment of the body. The nervous system has its own deep ties to breathing. As we have seen, it controls the rhythm of respiration, sending signals to the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. But the influence flows in both directions. Breathing affects the nervous system as well, shaping mood, arousal, and calmness. Slow, deep breaths activate the parasympathetic branch, calming the heart, lowering blood pressure, and easing the mind. Rapid breathing can stir alertness or agitation, shifting the body toward readiness for action. This two-way connection means that breathing is both a servant of the nervous system and a tool that influences it, a bridge between body and mind. Even the muscular and skeletal systems play their part. The ribs, sternum, and spine provide the framework for breathing, expanding, and contracting with each cycle. The muscles of the abdomen, chest, and back support the diaphragm, guiding and assisting its motion. Without these structures, the lungs could not draw in air, for they have no muscles of their own. The bones protect the lungs from injury, while the muscles make breathing dynamic, adjustable, and strong. The endocrine system, though less obvious, also links with respiration. Stress hormones like adrenaline can quicken the breath, preparing the body for sudden activity. Hormones that regulate metabolism, such as those from the thyroid, influence how much oxygen the body requires at rest. In this way, chemical signals throughout the body adjust the pace of breathing, keeping it aligned with broader needs. The immune system, too, is deeply tied to the respiratory system. The lungs are among the most exposed organs, constantly open to the outside world. With every breath, microbes and particles enter. The immune defenses within the lungs, from mucus and cilia to macrophages, work in concert with the broader immune system, ensuring that invaders are neutralized and the body remains safe. In times of illness, this connection becomes clear, as the breath may quicken or change, reflecting the immune system's struggle. Finally, the respiratory system influences homeostasis, the balance of the body's internal environment. By regulating carbon dioxide levels, breathing controls the acidity of the blood. A rise in carbon dioxide makes the blood more acidic. A decrease makes it more alkaline. The respiratory system therefore acts as a regulator, adjusting breathing to keep the pH within a narrow range. This balance is essential, for even slight shifts can disrupt cellular processes. Through the simple act of exhalation, the body maintains harmony in its inner chemistry. It is calming to reflect on how interconnected these systems are. Breathing does not belong only to the lungs. It touches the heart, the blood, the stomach, the muscles, the nerves, the bones, the glands, and the immune defenses. Each breath is not an isolated act, but a contribution to the whole, a single thread in the fabric of life. Imagine your breath traveling outward in this way. As oxygen enters the blood, it nourishes the heart and muscles. As carbon dioxide leaves, the chemistry of the blood is balanced. As the breath slows, the nervous system quiets, bringing calm to every organ. The rise of the chest is supported by bones and muscles, the release of air guided by reflexes and hormones. Each breath is not only a movement of air, but a harmony of systems, a symphony of the body working together. And so, the respiratory system reminds us that no part of the body lives in isolation. Every organ, every process, every rhythm is connected. The lungs breathe for the whole body, and the body, in turn, supports the lungs. In the next stage, we will turn to the ways in which breathing itself can bring calm, how slow, steady breaths influence not only the body's chemistry but also the mind, creating stillness and rest. 17. Breathing and relaxation. Beyond its biological role of bringing oxygen in and carrying carbon dioxide out, breathing holds a quiet power over the state of the mind and body. Unlike the heartbeat or digestion, which remain entirely outside conscious control, breathing exists in two worlds at once, automatic and voluntary. This dual nature allows it to serve not only as a life-sustaining process, but also as a gentle tool of calm, a way to soothe the body, to quiet the mind, and to draw the entire being into rest. When breathing slows, the nervous system responds. The parasympathetic branch, often called the rest and digest system, is activated. The heart rate eases, blood pressure lowers, muscles soften, and the body shifts into a state of recovery. This is why slow breathing is often associated with calmness, stillness, and even sleep. Each deliberate inhalation fills the lungs smoothly, and each unhurried exhalation carries tension away, much like waves withdrawing from the shore. The simple act of slowing the breath sets in motion a cascade of responses that bring balance to the whole body. Exhalation, in particular, carries a special influence. While inhalation is linked with mild arousal, exhalation strengthens the parasympathetic effect. A long, soft release of air gently signals to the nervous system that it is safe to relax. The diaphragm rises upward, the chest softens, and the body settles into ease. Repeated with rhythm, these breaths create a pattern of calm, as though the body is being lulled into rest by its own natural rhythm. The chemistry of breathing also plays a role. By exhaling fully and allowing carbon dioxide to leave the body in balance, the blood's pH remains stable, preventing the restlessness that comes with imbalance. When breathing is calm, oxygen supply remains steady without strain, and the body's energy flows with quiet efficiency. Shallow or rapid breathing, by contrast, can disturb this balance, making the body feel tense or alert. Thus, the depth and pace of each breath help shape not only physical comfort, but emotional ease as well. Cultures around the world have long recognized the soothing power of breath. In yoga, controlled breathing practices known as pranayama guide the body toward stillness and focus. In meditation, attention to the breath becomes a path into quiet awareness. In many traditions, a deep sigh or slow exhalation is seen as a natural release of burden. Science confirms what these practices have long known. Slow, steady breathing reduces stress hormones, steadies the heart, and calms the mind. Even in everyday life, the rhythm of breathing reflects and shapes emotion. A calm breath eases anxiety. A deep breath before speaking steadies the voice. A long exhale after exertion signals completion and rest. These small patterns remind us that breathing is not only mechanical but deeply connected to how we feel and how we move through the world. It is soothing to picture this link. Imagine lying quietly, the breath moving slowly in and out. With each inhalation, the body fills with ease, oxygen flowing gently into the bloodstream. With each exhalation, tension is carried away, leaving stillness behind. The rhythm continues without effort, guiding the body into balance, calming the mind, and creating space for rest. The breath becomes not just a process of survival, but a companion of peace. The power of breathing for relaxation is especially important at night. As the body prepares for sleep, the breath naturally slows, leading the nervous system toward calm. Paying quiet attention to this rhythm can ease the transition into slumber, drawing awareness away from thoughts and toward the gentle movement of the chest and diaphragm. The breath becomes a lullaby, steady and soft, carrying the body into rest. And so, breathing is more than physiology. It is a key that unlocks calmness, a bridge between body and mind, a rhythm that both sustains life and invites stillness. By simply allowing the breath to slow, to deepen, and to flow, one can enter a state of balance that supports rest and renewal. In the next stage, we will bring these many threads together, drawing the lecture to a close with a reflection on the rhythm of breathing as both a biological necessity and a gentle reminder of life's constancy. 18. The rhythm of night. As the day gives way to evening and the body prepares for rest, the rhythm of breathing undergoes a quiet transformation. What has been adaptable and responsive all day long, quickening with exertion, softening with stillness, now settles into a slower, more predictable pace. Breathing becomes the gentle background music of the night, guiding the body into rest and carrying it through the hours of sleep. While the conscious mind drifts into dreams, the breath continues faithfully, steady and unbroken, supporting the body's restoration in silence. During waking hours, breathing reflects our activity. It rises when we move quickly, deepens when we speak or sing, and shifts subtly with every thought and emotion. At night, this variability gives way to consistency. As we recline and close our eyes, the nervous system begins to slow its signals, inviting muscles to release their tension. The diaphragm remains the steady engine of the breath, rising and falling like a tide. While the intercostal muscles ease their work, breathing becomes shallow and slow, just enough to meet the body's reduced needs during rest. This first stage of nighttime breathing occurs as we drift into light sleep. Here, the breath is still influenced by the remnants of wakefulness, but it is already slowing into a calmer rhythm. Oxygen demands are lower, carbon dioxide is produced at a gentler pace, and the cycle of inhalation and exhalation reflects this balance. It is as though the breath is preparing the body, coaxing it softly toward deeper states of rest. As we enter the deeper stages of non-REM sleep, sometimes called slow-wave sleep, the breath finds its most regular pattern. Each inhalation is smooth, each exhalation quiet, the rhythm as steady as the movement of the ocean. This is the stage when the body repairs tissues, strengthens the immune system, and consolidates memories. The calm breath provides the foundation for these restorative processes, ensuring that oxygen flows where it is needed, while carbon dioxide is gently carried away. Without this dependable rhythm, the healing work of sleep could not unfold so fully. In REM sleep, when dreams arise, the breathing pattern becomes more irregular. The brain, though the body lies still, shows bursts of activity, and the breath reflects this with changes in pace, depth, and rhythm. At times it quickens, at times it pauses, but even in this variability, the deeper centers of control in the brainstem maintain oversight. The diaphragm continues to contract and relax. The blood continues to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide, and life continues quietly beneath the shifting surface of dreams. Nighttime breathing also serves protective roles. Reflexes remain active, even in deep sleep, ensuring that the airway remains clear and that breathing continues smoothly. If oxygen dips, the brainstem detects the change and prompts a quicker or deeper breath. If the airway narrows, the body may shift position unconsciously to restore the flow of air. These adjustments are automatic, part of the body's watchful care during sleep. We need not think of them, yet they keep the rhythm unbroken. The soothing nature of sleep breathing extends beyond function into sensation. Many find the sound of soft, steady breathing comforting, whether listening to their own breath or to that of a loved one nearby. The rhythm conveys safety, continuity, and peace. For infants, the steady breath of a parent can lull them to rest. For adults, awareness of their own calm breath can ease the mind, drawing focus away from thoughts and toward the gentle rise and fall of the chest. Breathing at night is not only a physical process but also a quiet reassurance, a reminder that life flows even in stillness. It is calming to picture this nocturnal rhythm. Imagine the chest rising slowly in the darkness, the diaphragm lowering with ease, the lungs filling with air as though drawing in the quiet of the night itself. Then picture the exhalation, soft and unhurried, releasing tension and drifting into silence. This pattern repeats again and again, unbroken for hours, guiding the sleeper through stages of rest and dream. The breath becomes like a lullaby written into the body, steady and gentle, carrying the sleeper through the night. Night breathing also reflects the deep connection between respiration and the mind. As thoughts quiet, so does the breath. As the body surrenders to rest, the rhythm slows in harmony. This connection explains why attention to the breath can help ease the transition into sleep. Focusing gently on inhalation and exhalation draws awareness away from the busyness of thought, anchoring it in the present, in the steady rhythm of life itself. In this way, the act of breathing becomes both physiology and meditation, both necessity and comfort. Over the course of a night, the rhythm of breathing shifts many times, aligning with cycles of non-REM and REM sleep, responding to changes in body position, and adapting to subtle variations in oxygen demand. Yet through all of this, one truth remains. The breath never ceases. It continues faithfully, whether regular or irregular, shallow or deep, ensuring that life flows unbroken through the night's long hours. And so, the rhythm of breathing at night is more than simply the mechanics of respiration. It is a companion to sleep, a guide through the stages of rest, a silent guardian that protects and restores. Each breath is a reminder that life continues in stillness, that even in unconsciousness, the body is cared for. It is both functional and poetic, both ordinary and deeply soothing. As you imagine the rhythm of night, picture yourself resting quietly, each inhalation drawing in the calm of darkness, each exhalation releasing the weight of the day. Let the breath carry you as it carries the body, softly, steadily, into restoration. This is the gift of the respiratory system at night, a rhythm that sustains, a rhythm that heals, a rhythm that continues without interruption until morning comes again. In the next stage, we will turn toward reflection, drawing together what we have explored about the breath, its pathways, its protections, its connections, its adaptability, and considering what it means to carry this rhythm through every moment of life. 19. A gentle closing reflection on breath in life. As we draw nearer to the end of this long, quiet journey through the respiratory system, it is fitting to pause and reflect on the deeper meaning of breath in life. For while the lungs, diaphragm, airways, and blood vessels are marvels of anatomy and physiology, the act of breathing extends beyond mechanics. It is both intimate and universal, both biological and symbolic, both a process of survival and a reminder of life's fragile, enduring rhythm. From the very beginning, breath has marked our existence. The first cry of a newborn is a declaration of life's arrival, the lungs opening for the first time to draw air inward. From that moment onward, breath continues without pause, day and night, through childhood, through adulthood, through rest, through effort. Each inhalation is an affirmation of being alive, each exhalation a gentle release. Though unnoticed most of the time, This rhythm accompanies us as faithfully as a heartbeat, a quiet partner in every experience we have. Breathing is also a mirror of life's states. In moments of calm, the breath is soft and unhurried. In laughter, it bursts forth in joyful rhythm. In sorrow, it falters and shakes. In exertion, it grows strong and deep, rising to meet the body's demands. In sleep, it slows into the gentle constancy of rest. The breath is not only a supplier of oxygen, but also an expression of the inner world, revealing in its rhythm what words may not capture. It reflects the body, the mind, and the emotions, uniting them in a single, continuous movement. In its universality, breath connects us to the living world around us. The oxygen we take in may have been released by a leaf on a tree, a patch of grass in a field, or phytoplankton floating in the sea. With every breath, we participate in a cycle shared by plants, animals, and all living beings. We release carbon dioxide, which in turn nourishes the greenery of the earth, which then offers oxygen back to us. Each inhalation and exhalation is part of this larger exchange, linking our bodies to forests, to oceans, to all of life. Breathing reminds us that we are never separate but always woven into the greater fabric of nature. It is soothing to reflect on the way breath threads through time. The lungs we carry are the product of evolution's long journey, shaped by countless generations of adaptation. In their rise and fall, we can trace the story of ancient fish gulping air, of amphibians breathing both in water and on land, of birds perfecting the flow of air to sustain flight. Our own breaths carry this lineage, this memory of life's persistence across ages. To breathe is to participate in a story far older than ourselves, one that stretches back to the origins of life on Earth. Breath also teaches us about impermanence and renewal. Each inhalation is temporary, filling the lungs only for a moment before it must be released. Each exhalation is a letting go, making space for the next cycle. The rhythm continues, unbroken but ever-changing, a lesson written into the body about the balance between holding on and letting go. Breathing shows us that life is not a single act but a continuity, sustained by endless cycles, each one small, each one essential. Consider, too, the way breathing links body and mind. Because it can be both automatic and voluntary, it offers a unique doorway into calmness. By slowing the breath, we quiet the nervous system. By noticing the breath, we anchor the wandering mind. This dual nature makes breathing not only a physical process but also a practice of awareness, a way to connect inwardly while remaining grounded in the present moment. In this way, the breath becomes a gentle teacher, offering peace in its constancy. It is comforting to imagine all of life breathing together, the soft sigh of a sleeping child, the deep inhalation of someone at rest, the steady rhythm of an animal in the forest, the flow of air across the gills of a fish. All are variations of the same theme. Each life breathes in its own way, yet all share the same purpose: to take in what is needed and to release what is no longer useful. Breathing, in this sense, is the great unifier, the rhythm that binds together the diversity of life in a single, quiet continuity. As we reflect on all we have explored, the pathways of air, the work of the lungs, the support of the diaphragm, the partnership with circulation, the defenses against harm, the adaptations across animals, and the soothing power of breath itself, we see that respiration is more than biology. It is the foundation of life, the rhythm that makes every other process possible. It is at once simple and profound, unnoticed yet essential, ordinary yet deeply meaningful. So, as this gentle lecture begins to near its end, let us hold in mind the breath not only as a function of the body, but as a symbol of life's continuity. Each inhalation is a reminder that we are sustained by the world around us. Each exhalation is a reminder that we, in turn, give something back. The breath is an exchange, a balance, a rhythm of giving and receiving that reflects the very nature of life itself. In the final part, we will close softly, returning to the image of the breath as a companion, faithful, constant, and enduring, guiding us quietly through every moment, from waking to sleep, from beginning to end. 20. Final soft conclusion. And now, we arrive gently at the close of this long journey through the respiratory system. We have traced the breath from its first entrance at the nose and mouth, down the winding airways, into the quiet chambers of the lungs, and through the delicate exchange of gases within the alveoli. We have followed oxygen into the bloodstream, carbon dioxide back to the lungs, and seen how every breath touches not just the lungs, but the heart, the blood, the muscles, the nerves, and the very balance of the body. We have looked beyond ourselves, seeing how fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, insects, and mammals each find their own way of drawing oxygen in and sending carbon dioxide out. And we have explored how the breath changes at night, how it calms the nervous system, and how it links us both to our own inner peace and to the wider web of life. At its heart, the story of the respiratory system is the story of continuity. The breath has no beginning or end, only cycles. Each inhalation draws in what is needed. Each exhalation lets go of what is finished. Again and again, without pause, the rhythm continues. It is easy to overlook because it is always there. Yet in this very constancy lies its beauty. Breathing is the quiet assurance that life flows, steady and unbroken, even when we are unaware of it. To breathe is to connect. With each inhalation, we draw in oxygen that may have been formed in the leaf of a tree, in the grass of a meadow, or in the waters of the sea. With each exhalation, we release carbon dioxide that will nourish those same plants in return. Our breathing is never ours alone. It belongs also to the world around us. It is part of the grand exchange between humans, animals, and plants, a cycle that sustains all of life on Earth. In this way, every breath is both personal and universal, intimate and shared. The lungs themselves remind us of resilience and delicacy, soft, spongy, and fragile, yet capable of supporting life through decades. They embody the balance between strength and vulnerability. They do their work in silence, hidden from view, expanding and contracting thousands of times a day. They do not ask for attention, yet they never cease in their devotion. Even as we sleep, they continue faithfully, ensuring that life flows into every cell of the body. There is a quiet poetry in knowing that the same breath that sustains effort also sustains rest. The same system that allows us to run, speak, and sing also carries us gently into sleep. Breath adapts to every moment, always present, always enough. It is the companion we never lose, the rhythm that is with us from our very first moment to our last. As this lecture draws to a close, imagine your own breath with a renewed sense of calm. Feel the air entering softly, filling the lungs with ease. Feel the air leaving, carrying with it tension and weight. Notice how this cycle repeats, simple yet profound, unbroken and effortless. With each breath, the body is sustained. With each breath, the mind is steadied. With each breath, life is renewed, and so we end as we began, with the breath, not with urgency, but with softness, not with finality, but with the gentle reminder that even as these words fade, the rhythm continues within you, carrying you forward quietly, steadily, peacefully. The breath is always there, a constant companion, a gentle guardian, a rhythm of life that asks for nothing and yet gives everything. May this quiet awareness settle into you like a soft tide, guiding you into rest, into stillness, into peace. The respiratory system, with all its intricacy and beauty, has been explained, but more than that, it has been felt as a living rhythm within. And now, as the night continues, the breath will remain with you, steady and calm, until sleep takes you gently into its embrace.